Welcome to Dark Tales, where we explore eerie stories and chilling mysteries. It was 1968 when Anneliese Michel's life began to take a dark, chilling turn. She was just a regular 16-year-old girl living in a small town in Germany. Her upbringing had been devoutly Catholic, daily prayers, regular church attendance. But nothing in her peaceful world could have prepared her for what was about to happen. One evening, Anneliese suddenly collapsed. Her body seized violently, her limbs jerking uncontrollably. When she regained consciousness, she had no memory of the incident. Doctors diagnosed her with temporal lobe epilepsy, a condition that could explain the seizures, the confusion, and even the strange feelings she had been experiencing. At first, the diagnosis brought some comfort. It was something treatable, something they could explain. But the strange occurrences didn't stop. In fact, they grew worse. Anneliese started seeing disturbing, terrifying visions during her prayers, faces, twisted and grotesque, mocking her. Then came the voices, deep guttural whispers that filled her mind, telling her she was damned, that she would rot in hell. They were relentless, haunting her every waking moment. The medication prescribed for her epilepsy did nothing to stop these hallucinations. Soon, Anneliese became convinced that this was something far beyond medical science. This wasn't epilepsy, this was evil. Her family, devout Catholics, believed her. They turned to the church, convinced that Anneliese was not sick, but possessed. Her behavior grew more erratic. She became intolerant of religious objects, violently reacting to crucifixes and holy water. She would scream in agony at the sight of a rosary, and she spoke of being tormented by demons. She would kneel and pray for hours on end, desperate for relief, but none came. She refused to eat, saying that the demons wouldn't let her. By 1975, after several years of suffering and with no medical solution in sight, her parents and a group of priests convinced the local bishop to grant an exorcism. Father Arnold Renz and Pastor Ernst Alt were assigned to perform the ritual under strict secrecy. For the next 10 months, Anneliese would endure 67 exorcisms. During the exorcisms, Anneliese would thrash violently, speak in multiple voices, sometimes claiming to be Lucifer, Judas Iscariot, or other damned souls. She would contort her body in ways that seemed unnatural, screaming about fire, damnation, and how no one could save her. On some occasions, her voice would change, turning guttural, unrecognizable as hers. She begged for release, sometimes in her own voice, but other times in the voices of the supposed demons that claimed to possess her. But you know what? There is an audio recording that was made during an exorcism where you can hear Anneliese in a state of distress. Here's a short extract of the audio. Through it all, her health rapidly deteriorated. She stopped eating entirely, wasting away, her body becoming frail and skeletal. Her parents, desperate to save their daughter's soul, believed the exorcisms were her only chance. But the toll on her physical health was catastrophic. On July 1st, 1976, after months of exorcisms and starvation, Anneliese Michel died. She was just 23 years old. The official cause of death was malnutrition and dehydration. She weighed only 68 pounds at the time of her death. Her death led to a massive court trial that gripped the nation. Her parents and the priests involved were charged with negligent homicide. The court ruled that Anneliese had been mentally ill and that the exorcism rituals, combined with her refusal to seek proper medical treatment, had led to her death. The priests and her parents were found guilty, but received relatively light sentences, as the court acknowledged that they had acted out of genuine belief that Anneliese was possessed. To this day, Anneliese Michel's story remains a haunting reminder of the fine line between faith, mental illness, and tragedy. Some believe she was truly possessed, a victim of evil forces beyond comprehension. Others see her as a victim of untreated mental illness, caught in the crossfire of religious zeal and a failure to seek adequate medical care. Her grave became a site of pilgrimage for those who believe in her possession And her story has inspired films, documentaries, and endless debates about what truly happened in the small German village decades ago. Nate had been in a relationship with Emily for 5 unforgettable years before tragedy struck. On a quiet August evening in 2012, Emily's life was taken in a horrific 3-car accident when someone ran a red light. Her death was instant. Nate's world shattered. Emily had been his everything, bold, adventurous, always choosing dare over truth, and happiest surrounded by nature, despite her love for technology. She wasn't perfect, and she never wanted to be remembered as such. In her own words, "If I go first, don't just say nice things. You're doing me a disservice if you don't remember my flaws." Nate clung to those memories, her quirky habits, her love for daring escapades, her scent of cinnamon, when grief overwhelmed him. But life moved on, though Nate couldn't quite let go. He left Emily's Facebook page active, a digital echo of her presence. He found comfort in revisiting her photos, rereading old messages, and writing to her, even though she was no longer there. It wasn't until 13 months after her death that something deeply unsettling began. On September 4th, 2013, Nate received a Facebook message from Emily's account. At first, he assumed it was Emily's mother, Susan, who also had access to the page. But after confirming with Susan that she hadn't touched the account since Emily's death, Nate's confusion turned to dread. The messages kept coming, and something was horribly wrong. They weren't just random. Whoever was behind the account was recycling lines from conversations Nate and Emily had once shared. Then it got worse. Emily's account started tagging herself in Nate's photos, placing her in familiar spots, places she would have been if she were still alive. Sometimes Nate would catch these tags in time to take a screenshot, but most vanished before he could verify them. The feeling that someone or something was messing with him was unbearable. Friends began to notice too. Some brushed it off as a glitch, but others distanced themselves, clearly uncomfortable with the eerie situation. As the months passed, Nate's frustration grew. He was losing sleep, consumed by anger and the need for answers. Whoever was behind this was digging into his grief, twisting the knife deeper. Nate changed passwords, tightened security, and even reached out to tech forums and Facebook support for help. But the messages continued, and they were becoming more personal. On March 25th, 2014, he received a response that stopped him cold. It wasn't just Emily's old words being used against him now, it was his own. The person behind the account was cycling through past conversations between Nate and Emily, pulling fragments of their lives and throwing them back at him. The horror of it was suffocating. Nate had hoped to bait whoever was behind this, but he was starting to lose control. The tipping point came on April 16th, when Emily's account sent a message that seemed like complete nonsense, a jumbled mess of recycled phrases. But something in the message sent a chill down Nate's spine. And then, on May 8th, he received the first truly original message. Freezing. Freezing. Nate's heart raced as a cold sweat covered him. It wasn't just words. It was a nightmare manifesting into reality. He started dreaming of Emily trapped in an ice-cold car, her skin blue and gray, frozen, while he stood outside screaming, helpless. In these dreams, she never noticed him, her legs dangling outside the car, lifeless. By late May, Nate couldn't take it any longer. One of the final messages, seemingly benign to anyone else, crushed him. A sentence about walking, pasted from an old conversation where Nate had tried to convince Emily to let him drive her home. The same conversation he had had with her just hours before her fatal crash. The details of her accident, how she was severed diagonally in the collision, one of her legs tucked under the back seat, came rushing back to him. Nate memorialized Emily's Facebook page, hoping that this would stop the torment. But on July 1st, 2014, the messages resumed. One final message arrived, and Nate felt his stomach turn. The familiar Facebook alert sound echoed through his apartment, but he was too terrified to check it. What if it was her? What if it wasn't? Now Nate sat there frozen. He didn't know what to do anymore. What if this was Emily reaching out from beyond the grave? What if it was something darker? Pierre and Marie had always enjoyed running the family vineyard, a business passed down through generations. Their lives were filled with travel, attending wine exhibitions to promote their work. But one year, an invitation to a prestigious wine event in Tahiti took them on a journey that would become the most terrifying experience of their lives. The couple boarded the plane with excitement, though the exhausting journey was plagued by the cries of a restless child. By the time they arrived at their luxury hotel, it was late and they were desperate for sleep. The hotel was a dream, spacious, secluded, with no neighbors nearby. They felt secure as they climbed into bed, hoping to rest before the big event the next day. At around 2 a.m., a violent storm erupted, soon escalating into a full-blown cyclone. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows, and sleep became impossible. As the storm raged, Pierre and Marie heard strange noises from the balcony, but they dismissed them, assuming it was just the wind. An hour later, the sound came again, but this time louder. Pierre, curious and uneasy, decided to check the balcony. What he found made his blood run cold. Standing there in the darkness was a towering man, tall and broad-shouldered, gazing into the void as if in a trance. He didn't react to Pierre's presence at all. Stunned, Pierre took a step closer and saw a second figure lying on the balcony floor, eyes wide open but completely still. The eerie silence was suffocating. Acting on instinct, Pierre grabbed a knife from the room, threatening the strangers. But Marie, noticing that the men weren't acting aggressively, calmly guided them out of the room. They left without resistance, their blank stares lingering like ghosts. Shaken, Pierre and Marie called the hotel reception, but their story was met with disbelief. There was no sign of forced entry, and the staff dismissed their claims as a misunderstanding or hallucination from exhaustion. The next day, they carried on with their work, trying to forget the bizarre encounter. But their last day on the island would bring a new terror. Deciding to enjoy one final day on the beach, they went snorkeling, marveling at the vibrant sea life. Time slipped away, and when Marie lifted her head from the water, her heart sank. The shore had disappeared. A fierce current had pulled them far from the beach, leaving only jagged rocks in sight. Pierre, already a poor swimmer, was gripped with panic as he struggled to find a safe place to rest. The ocean churned around them, the waves rising higher and higher. Desperation set in. In a moment of sheer madness, or perhaps brilliant instinct, Marie decided to float on her back, hoping to drift toward a rescue. She left Pierre clinging to a rock, his fear mounting as the water threatened to sweep him away. Minutes felt like hours until Marie spotted a boat in the distance. Summoning every ounce of strength, she screamed for help. The boat turned toward her, saving her from the merciless sea. With Marie safely aboard, they returned to rescue Pierre, who was close to being swallowed by the waves. Together, they made it back to shore, shaken but alive, grateful to have survived not only the storm, but the strange, haunting events that had unfolded during their time in Tahiti. Years later, Pierre and Marie would recount this terrifying ordeal, still unsure of what they had truly experienced. Whether it was a brush with madness or something more sinister, the mystery of the two men on their balcony and the perilous encounter with the sea would forever remain unanswered. Thanks for joining me today on Dark Tales. If you're as intrigued by this mystery as I am, hit that like button and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more dark stories from the shadows. And remember, not everything that lurks in the woods can be explained. Stay curious. Stay safe.